welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas talking with State Representative Kirk Scheuring and talking about this convention that you will be a delegate. Before we move on, let me just say that you will be in our thoughts and prayers as you make these very important decisions. This is nothing to be taken lightly. I know you do not take it lightly, and we appreciate your service and your commitment to making these right and very important decisions. Let's move on to another item on your plate, which is discussing this marijuana issue. Kirk, first of all, it went on the ballot. The voters voted it down handily. Why is it back?
Well, I'm going to piggyback on your comment about thoughts and prayers. I need them, and this is one of the reasons I need those thoughts and prayers. This is a very, very difficult issue. The ballot issue back in November of last year was to allow for medical and recreational marijuana, and also created a system of a monopoly for those special interests who were seeking to get Ohioans to approve it. It went down resoundingly, and I was very, very happy that happened. The one thing that came out of that, however, was that the people of Ohio support medical marijuana. Now, when I say they support it, it begs the question, well, what is medical marijuana? So what the Speaker of the House did right after the election, he put me in charge of exploring, what would be a reasonable approach for medical marijuana. And then in January, he appointed a 15-member task force with people representing law enforcement, drug and alcohol addiction counselors, the business community, physicians, hospitals, and even some medical marijuana advocates. We had 7 hearings with over 23 hours of testimony, people coming in from all across the United States, all across the state of Ohio. And then from there, we used that to come up with a bill that is now pending in the General Assembly. The simple fact of the matter is, whatever we do, we need to do it through the Ohio Revised Code and not the Constitution. There are, once again, some out-of-state special interests who are looking to go to the ballot this November for a medical marijuana initiative that would chisel into the Constitution their special interest language. And once you do that, it's nearly impossible to change. In fact, the language they're submitting says that whatever they do, it could not be changed by the General Assembly. So it's a little bit like the casino gambling issue where, I was one who, over the years, said no to casino gambling when they tried to get something through the General Assembly. But then cleverly, some of the out-of-state casino operators came back to the ballot and won their constitutional amendment. And we just and all the folks who were part of the task force, even the I'm talking about law enforcement officers, drug and alcohol addiction counselors, the people who came in and testified against medical marijuana, when they were asked the question, well, would you prefer for the state General Assembly, the Ohio legislature, to deal with this, or would you prefer for it to just for us to take a pass, the legislature to take a pass and allow others to take it to the ballot? Everyone said, without exception, that they would rather have the legislature adopt a law that could be monitored, evaluated, changed. And the bill that's pending right now sets up a framework where physicians and their patients will be in charge. The dispensaries will be under the pharmacy board, and there are many safeguards in there to make sure that if in fact a physician recommends medical marijuana to his or her patient, that it's done in a way that it's transparent and we can look at it, monitor it, and make sure that it's safe and effective for those who are going to be using it.
And I understand it would be taken in a way other than like not smoking it, that there are pills or injection or some kind of other way to administer it. Am I wrong on that?
You're correct. It would not be smokable. Smoking would not be allowed, and it would be dispensed and administered in a more traditional type of medicine forms like pills, tinctures, derma patches, things of that nature.
What would be legal and what would be illegal, Kirk?
Well, the only thing that would be legal would be if a physician would recommend medical marijuana to his or her patient. That would make it legal. Mm-hmm. Anything outside that would be illegal.
So I'm trying to think of the drug-free workplaces that folks are setting up. Is it possible that there would be the scenario where a patient would be taking it and going to work or driving? Or would it be something where, like, you know, if you're on Vicodin or something where you're not allowed to be behind the wheel?
Same kind of, all the drug-free workplace policies are protected in this legislation. The employer, through their employee handbook, will make those determinations. So whatever the employer has now as far as workplace standards and rules still would apply. The same thing holds true with operating a motor vehicle. All those laws that deal with impairment still would be applicable, and this legislation does not change any of that.
Certainly understand why you felt the need to get ahead of this, get in front of it, if it was going to be keep just coming back and back and back as the casinos did, where someone basically, if they keep losing, then they just change the rules to be able to win, and appreciate you're getting ahead of this. Do you have concerns about any kind of a slippery slope that once it's approved for medicinal purposes, that it can work its way into recreational purposes?
I think the system that we put up, again, with the dispensaries being regulated and enforced by the pharmacy board, physicians being regulated and enforced by the medical board. We are going to license cultivators, processors. We have a tracking system so that every time medical marijuana is recommended, we'll be able to track it from seed to sale and know who's getting it. We'll be able to see if physicians are overly recommending medical marijuana. We'll be able to see if there's dispensaries that are doing more than others, or if somebody is out trying to shop their physician or dispensary. We learned actually from the opioid epidemic where we didn't have those front-end kind of controls, and now we're chasing our tail trying to figure out how we can get our arms around the opioid abuse. And so we've learned from those lessons. Sadly, we've learned from those, and that's the way we've crafted this legislation, so that there will be plenty of checks and balances, plenty of monitoring, and at the end of the day, it's going to be driven by the physician and what he or she thinks is best for his or her patient.
I'm just interested in your thoughts because of that. That's my very next question. So many people that we read about getting, or that we know, who've gotten addicted to prescriptive drugs already. Does this add one more that would be another danger, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we had during our task force hearings and the select committee hearings, I chaired both. We had people come in from the medical community. Ideally, what we would like to do, and there is a chance it will happen in the very near future, if marijuana is reclassified by the DEA from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 2 controlled substance, we can do much more as far as clinical trials are concerned. The addictive nature, many claim that marijuana is not addictive. The jury's still out on that, but there are people within the medical community who feel that way. So what we did here in as it relates to marijuana compared to some of the FDA-approved psychotropic and opioid drugs, is that they are highly addictive and they have severe side effects to the point where veterans were coming in testifying about their battle with PTSD and how they were prescribed medicine that is FDA approved, psychotropic drugs that had severe, very serious side effects. And they came from other states where medical marijuana was permissible, and they said it was a preferred way of dealing with their PTSD versus some of the more conventional ways. So it's all going to be, again, monitored on the front end with the physician and the patient, and we'll be able to see if there's any abusive situations going on. One last thing, and I'm rambling a little bit, but back in the 1990s when I was on the House Health Committee before I went to the Senate, we had at that time people coming in who were experiencing intractable pain to the point where they were crying out, literally crying out for relief, and they were concerned that physicians would not prescribe the proper painkillers because of the law and the way that it handcuffed physicians. Well, we relaxed those laws, and frankly, I think hindsight being 2020, because we didn't put the safeguards in, that's where the opioid epidemic started. And so, again, we learned from those mistakes, and there's going to be plenty of guardrails around this particular legislation that will prevent it from being abused.
Well, we certainly appreciate all that you're doing. You've asked for our thoughts and prayers. You have them. State Representative Kirk Scheuring and the majority leader of the Ohio House. We're going to just have to have you back with an update. This is all good information. We appreciate your time with us on our community.
Well, thank you, Susan. I always enjoy being on your show, and again, I appreciate those prayers.